Hello everyone and welcome back. I want to talk about cycling. I want to talk about bikes. One in particular, my Titanium Salsa Fargo, why I bought this bike, why I like it, and why I think it might be a good bike for some of you out there. But before we go any further, I've got a tirade of notes here that I need to go over about this bike, the buying experience, the brand, etc. Two things. I'm not a bike expert. I am the farthest you could possibly be from a bike expert. I love riding them. I just point them in a certain direction and I ride as far as I can. I don't know how to work on them. I'm not an expert in the history of cycling or bikes, etc., etc. I have very specific reasons why I bought this that I'm going to share with you. Number two is you don't need a fancy bicycle. If you're interested in cycling, it doesn't matter what you get, how inexpensive, how expensive, what material, what tire size, none of that matters. If the bike gets you out into the public on a bicycle, whether that's running errands, going to dinner, commuting, or just riding for exercise and fun, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. My first bike was a yellow Schwinn with a banana seat. But the bike I liked to ride more than anything else was my sister's bike, which was a pink bike called a Lil Chick. Lil Chick, which I think was a Schwinn. It had a white basket on the front with streamers. And for some reason, when I was in like first grade, I thought if I rode the Lil Chick, I would be the Fonz. So my mom has pictures of me going, hey, like the Fonz, because I thought I was the Fonz on the Lil Chick. It doesn't matter what bike you ride. I would not be caught dead on the Lil Chick today, though. It would look bad. It would be bad form. And it sucks on long distances. So let's just jump into this. Cycling has seen a resurgence here during COVID. I think that's ultimately, even though from terrible circumstances, that's ultimately a good thing. If we can get more people on bikes, that's a wonderful thing. The hard part will be to skew the legislators and the people in control of things like insurance who really don't have a vested interest in turning America into a great cycling destination. But we can work on this. If you're new to cycling, I posted something a couple of days ago about Phil Guyman, who's an ex-pro rider who basically did a YouTube film about this very thing, saying, hey, if you're new, stick with it. We're here to help you. The people who are more established. And for those of you who are established, don't be jerks. Help the newbies get into cycling, because the more people on bikes, the better it is for all of us. Okay, one of the things you got to know about cycling is that, and Phil mentioned it in his film, there's a lot of drivers out there who are unhappy people that you are never going to impact. They are going to swerve at you. They're going to honk at you. They're going to potentially throw things at you. I've had all these things happen many times. They're going to call you names. They're going to blame you for creating all the traffic. Yes, believe it or not, I know people who think that cyclists are responsible for traffic, which is a very peculiar post-truth way of looking at things, but it's true and it happens. Don't worry about them. There's nothing you can do to change them or sway them. Just enjoy yourself, abide by the rules. Don't blow through stop signs. Don't blow through red lights. Don't ride on the sidewalk like a maniac. Don't cause people to take evasive action. That's the most important thing. All right, so in 2013 or 2014, I was in the market for a new bike. I wanted a bike, one bike, to do everything. So I kept looking around and all of my cycling friends said, don't do it. You need a road bike, you need a mountain bike, you need a gravel bike, you need a quiver of bikes. And I said, you know what? I don't want that. I want one bike to do everything. I started looking around and I stumbled on this brand called Salsa. And Salsa at the time was a relatively unknown brand. And remember, this was 6-7 years ago. Everything is completely different. Now you can buy Salsa bikes at REI, which is a great thing. But at the time, Salsa was a bit of what I would call a fringe brand. If you pulled over the average person on the street and said, you ever heard of Salsa cycles? Probably not. Trek, yes. Giant, yes. Specialized, yes. Schwinn, yes. Huffy, whatever. So I zeroed in on the Salsa Fargo. I had also always wanted a titanium bicycle. Titanium is super light, super strong, doesn't rust, lasts forever if it's built correctly. And I'd always heard about the ride quality of titanium. I always thought it was totally BS. My roadie friends, oh, I ride a Thai bike. It's the best ride quality for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it can't be that big of a difference. Truth is, it is. After having this bike for 6 or 7 years, I can tell you that Thai rides better than any material I've ever ridden. And again, if you're a steel person or aluminum person or carbon person, whatever, it doesn't matter. I happen to like Thai. All right, so let's go back to 2013, 2014. There were not a lot of bikes like the Fargo on the market. There were hardly any. So Salsa pioneered the gravel industry in many ways, and they also pioneered bikes that were built for things like the Tour Divide. So drop bar adventure mountain bikes. So a mountain bike geometry, but with drop bars flared called wood chippers, and a bike that sort of could be a jack of all trades. You could use it on the road, you could use it on the Tour Divide, you could ride gravel, you could run a 2.5-inch mountain bike tire or throw a different wheel set on and run a 25 centimeter road tire. You could do anything on this bike. So I sort of I made a decision that's the bike I wanted. In this sort of inside cycling, or people that knew cycling and bikes a lot, they would say, oh, you're getting a Fargo, that's a great bike, that's a great bike. Everyone else is like, never heard of it. So I buy this thing, and I'm gonna get to the buying experience in a minute, which was not good, but I'm not explaining it because it wasn't good. I'm explaining it in relationships to bike shops. So I buy this bike, I get it, and I promptly get Lyme disease. So for the first year of owning this bike, I didn't touch it. It sat in the library in my house, and I just looked at it because I was too sick to do anything, let alone ride a bicycle. And then over the next 2.5 years, I was still mostly sick. I started to get out on this bike a little bit. I realized immediately this was my favorite bike of all time. I realized that if I wanted to ride across the country on pavement, I could do it. Ride across the country on the Transamerica Trail on dirt, I could do that. I could go bikepacking, I could tour, I could do road rides, I could ride the Santa Fe ski basin on the pavement or the dirt, it didn't matter. I could ride single track if I really wanted to. I was in heaven with this bike, I just couldn't ride it. Why did I get this bike? I wanted one bike to do everything, which I think this is a really good candidate for. 2, the titanium was really important. 3 is I could set this bike up any way I wanted. So if you look at the bike now, I've got frame packs from Porcelain Rocket, which at the time was one of the few companies making frame packs for bikes, and with Fargos in particular. They were handmade, I think out of Canada, if I remember correctly. Now you've got Ortlieb, you have Salsa themselves, you have a whole myriad of companies that are making bike packing equipment, which again is fantastic because it's getting a lot more people on bikes. I run a frame pack, I run a seat post bag, where the frame pack has all my tools, my food, and my seat post bag carries my thermal layers, my rain layers. Out here at 7,000 feet, you're up in the mountains in the summer, you get rain, you get hail. You have to have thermals, you have to have rain gear. I have extra tubes, I have a small pump, etc. I've also got it set up, and this is one of the things that Salsa does amazingly well, is their frames and forks are riveted for just about anything you can imagine. So Salsa was the first brand that I saw that had a riveted carbon fork for holding packs or water bottles, etc. I'd never seen a carbon fork riveted before, and 2, never seen one that would hold the weight of a pack, a small pack, or a water bottle. So I have water bottles on my front fork too. I have a third on the down tube. I've also got a little bag on the handlebar where I carry a 4th one, because again, out here, it's super hot, super dry, super high, and I have Lyme disease and kidney stones. So the more water that I take in, the better off I am. So also you can run just about any tire width on this. I think it came with 2.5-inch Racing Ralphs, which is a Schwalbe tire. I just flatted nonstop with those. I swapped them out for a variety of different tires over the years. Now I'm running a 40-centimeter Schwalbe Marathon Plus Tour, which I've done a review about. Love these tires. I can ride gravel, a little bit of single track, and tons of tarmac all in the same tire. They last forever. I love it. The bike came with SRAM components, and this is the only bike I've ever had with SRAM. I'm definitely a Shimano person, nothing against SRAM, but I've had Shimano my entire life. I'm in the process of debating which way I'm going to go. I'm probably going to switch over to the GRX, the gravel group set from Shimano. I'll probably get a double. I'll probably get the low geared version of that because again, I'm bikepacking, touring, and I live in the mountains. So the lower the gearing, the better. And so the other option would be a roll-off hub with a carbon drive, a carbon Gates carbon belt drive, which is super intriguing to me. And that leads me to my next point, which is the buying experience of getting this bike. And I do not, under any circumstances, want to deter you from getting a Salsa. And I'm getting ready to do another film about 5 bikes that I think would be great bikes for people getting into cycling to think about, and there's a Salsa bike on there. So I'm not deterring you from Salsa, but I want to talk about this filtered through the idea of a bike shop. So I bought this in 2013-14. Like I said, there were not a lot of bikes like this. And bike shops are typically going to try to sell you what they have on the showroom floor because they want to get rid of it and get something else. I knew that going in. I've been to 100 bike shops. I've heard every kind of different angle and I don't want to call it scam, but angle that the salespeople are trying. So when I got this, the bike shop that I preferred to use in Southern California sells more Thai than any bike shop I'd ever seen. Unfortunately, they could not sell the Salsa. So I went to the local bike shop that could sell the Salsa, and they tried to sell me the prior year model in the wrong size. And I got on, I saw it from across the showroom and I'm like, that's way too small for me. I got over there, looked at it. They said, oh no, it's perfect. That's the perfect size for you. And just as a test, I said, I need to put a roll-off hub on it. And their quote to me was, oh, we've done that 1,000 times. It's no problem. Well, the prior year model of Salsa was not really tailor-made to put a roll-off hub in. The 2014 was, and that's one of the reasons why I held off and waited for this model. So I was like, okay, these guys are a little, they're trying to do their bike shop thing, but I don't want to buy the bike here. So I tried a second Salsa dealer, and all they did was try to steer me away from buying a Salsa, oddly enough. And again, they have different bikes on the showroom. They're trying to sell what they have. They said, you don't want that bike, blah, blah, blah. I literally walked out in the middle of that meeting because this was a shop up in LA, total nightmare to get to. And I was by this time really frustrated. So I started looking around for another brand. I realized there wasn't any other complete bike, titanium bike out there except for this one. And I did really think that this was the perfect bike. So I had to go back to the original bike shop. I bought it from them. It was not good. They assembled it wrong. They didn't put a fit on it. The bike was missing parts. The first time I rode it, the rear wheel fell off 5 feet into my ride. I took it back over to my preferred bike shop. They took one look at it and said, this should have never left the showroom. They tore it apart, rebuilt it. It's been perfect ever since. The point with this is, that was a long time ago, number one. And number two is, you've got to find a good bike shop. And when you find a good bike shop and you find a mechanic that you like and trust and an owner that you like and trust, it is a wonderful feeling because they know how much you love your bike because they love their bikes too. And so when you go in and you say, I want to ride the Tour Divide, or my brother and I are going to ride across the country, they will start scheming and scamming on how to best help you. And that's really the key. REI has an amazing return policy. You can now buy Salsa bikes at REI, so that's not a bad thing. I bought my wife a Journeyman 650B last summer. Had a front suspension fork. She'd probably still have it, but she's got arthritic shoulders and couldn't ride it, so we took it back. But that's a great thing that you can now buy these bikes at REI. How will I use this bike? I'm using it now for everything. I commute on this, I buy groceries on this, I do road rides on this. I did a 51-mile, mostly road ride yesterday. I ride gravel. I'm exploring all over New Mexico on this bike. I've got a rear rack with panniers. I've got bike packing equipment. And so this is the only bike I plan on riding for the foreseeable future. My Carbon Bianchi is just sitting there getting beaten up in the weather out here. And the last point I want to make is, would I buy this bike again? And unequivocally, I would say yes. I love this bike. I love titanium. It's been super solid. And again, this bike will do far more than I am capable of doing on it. So it's a Salsa Fargo Titanium. They also make a steel version. They make a less expensive version. You don't need the titanium unless you're like me and you've always had your sights set on a titanium bike. But that in a nutshell is why I ride this bike. And I think it's a really viable option for a lot of people out there who are not entirely sure what they want to do on a bike. They want something stable, simple, safe, and affordable. So get out there and ride.